LaxFactor podcast. What is up, Lacrosse fans? You are watching episode 122 of the LaxFactor podcast. I am always indecisive with the numbers as it pertains to the episodes. Today, we have a bunch of news for you. We have some transfer flip news where some guys have decommitted from an Ivy and are now heading to an ACC school, which just keeps happening. And then I wanted to talk about the not necessarily the top returning freshmen from last year's crop of D1 freshmen that are coming back and looking to have a big year. But, you know, at least the guys that I'm really excited. Some of them are inarguably the top freshmen coming back, but and all of them will technically be freshmen from an eligibility standpoint as well. So I want to talk about 2021's returning freshmen, technically sophomores, technically freshmen, that are going to have breakout seasons in 2021 again, because they already broke out in 2020 and they get to just finish that job in 2021. Before I get into it, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you're notified when we put out more videos. And also, if you want to support us beyond that, you can go to LaxFactor.com. You can watch our videos there. You can see the audio podcast there. More importantly, you can buy swag to help support us, hats, t-shirts, all sorts of other stuff. And it's not all branded stuff. We have just regular lacrosse-related t-shirts and apparel as well. So let's get into it. And I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of their name here, but the Ricciardelli brothers, they flipped from Penn to Notre Dame. Things just keep getting worse for the Ivy League teams, more specifically Penn, as they're bleeding guys, very specifically to Notre Dame. Penn lost Gallagher and Thornton due to their inability to bring back their seniors because of the COVID and school rules and all that weird stuff with the Ivy. In Gallagher, the Irish gain one of the best face-off men in the country, bar none, and Penn loses the guy that has helped them keep pace with Yale and T.D. Erlin in the Ivy League. Gallagher was a huge piece of their success, and losing him now hurts them badly, especially because they lose him and Thornton. I believe Thornton's a midfielder. Or is he a defender? I'm drawing a blank here now all of a sudden on what Thornton is, but they lose Gallagher and Thornton. Thornton, I believe his name actually is, to Notre Dame. So you throw in Jeff and Thomas Ricciardelli, if that's the right way to pronounce that. Jeff is a 4-star lefty finisher, number 34 overall player in the 21 class. Good enough that he broke a record that was set by Michael Krause, UVA standout Michael Krause, who is now a pro when he was only a sophomore. 63 goals Jeff put up in 2019 versus Krause's 57 in 2016. I think that was Krause's senior year in high school. Thomas, the younger brother, 5-star, insane goalkeeper, 22 class, 64% save percentage in 2019 as a freshman. Now, I watched both of their tapes. Jeff, the lefty finisher, very solid lacrosse player. I do not think he's the type of kid that's going to get right on the field for Notre Dame and contribute immediately. If he did, it would probably be in a specialty capacity, similar to like a man-up guy coming on or something like that. But I picture him just being a solid role player and maybe, making some noise and getting a start and really contributing by the time he's a junior or so. But I could be wrong. That's the hard thing to it's always hard to say with the young guys. Now, Thomas, the 5-star keeper, I try not to overblow things, and I try to be tempered in my opinions overall, unless it has something to do with Syracuse, where you all know I tend to get a little excited. But this keeper is the real deal, man. I watched his tape, and just positionally, in terms of his basics, in terms of his stance, in terms of him always being in the right position before a shot's ever taken, right up there with the best of them in his class in the country, I would say, in terms of high school keepers. The way he steps to the ball, he's not reactive. He's very patient in his stance. So he doesn't just see a shot come off somebody's hands and get all jumpy and start guessing. He was very measured in his movements. Now, I only caveat that with, I was watching a highlight cut, so I didn't see him giving up goals, which is what I would have really liked to see to kind of gauge how good this kid is. But in what I did see where he was making saves, excellent steps, incredible hands, does not guess, at least not in the scenarios that I saw. He really just he sees the ball well, waiting for the shot to be taken and then reacts to the shot and to where the ball is going, not to, how it's leaving the shooter's stick. So excellent instincts, and was just an all-around mechanically sound goalkeeper. I think he is the kind of kid that could step onto a campus, start as a freshman, and then be a standout goalie through 4 years. So Notre Dame picked up a really good recruit in this kid, and Penn lost a potential 4-year starting goalie when they lost him. So that's a little bit of the news. Another little tidbit of news, and I'm not going to, it's going to be one of those news things where I tell you a part of the story, not the whole story, and you're going to get mad. But the reality is we've all kind of had the idea, and I believe it might even be official, that Princeton is not playing in this upcoming 2021 season. They will be, like, they have enough players that are opting out. They're just not going to have, they're not going to be able to field a team. So it looks like Princeton is not playing in 2021. And now I have word on good authority that there is another Ivy League school that is also unofficially, like inside the organization, it's official. They're not playing. Unofficially, it's not announced yet. But now we're looking at possibly 2 Ivy League schools already opting out of the 2021 season. So that'll be interesting to watch that. So just everyone keep their ears low to the ground. You hear anything, let me know. But it looks like we do have 2 Ivies that aren't going to play in 2021, which is going to be really odd for that conference. Bad for the teams within the conference. They're going to have to find some other games to play here and there. So that was another little bit of news. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of this episode. Freshmen from 2020, I'm excited to see break out again in 2021. These are guys that were freshmen at the D1 level in 2020, and now they're going to be freshmen technically again in 2021, and all of them should have huge years. So I'm going to start with the guy I think I am most excited about, and I think a lot of people are, and it's Richmond's Richie Connell, 6'5", 205-pound kid out of the Hill Academy, 2020 as a freshman. Played in all 7 games, started 5 on attack. That was something that was a surprise to the Richmond coaching staff. They weren't sure this kid was going to come on campus and just own a position like he did right away, and he did. First team freshman All-American by College Cross. Yeah, take that with a grain of salt, albeit he's a nasty freshman. Led the team with 19 goals, second with 22 total points, 2 or more goals in 5 games, 3 games with 3 or more goals. Now, Connell wasn't the leading scoring freshman in the country, but one of the things that he was one of the most consistent scorers in the country in terms of, you'll see a couple of the guys I'm going to talk about, they put up 7 points in a single game. So let's say they had 30 points. Well, they put 7 up in one game, 6 up in another, and then the rest was spread. Connell's point production was very well spread out throughout the entire season. Well, throughout the 7 games anyway. 2 or more goals in 5 games, 3 games with 3 or more goals, 3 goals in his first game against Maryland, so that's not bad. One of the reasons that Richmond didn't fall off and that Richmond came out in 2020 and was just as solid as they were in 2019. Led the country with 7 man-up goals in 7 games. Very opportunistic, and I like that. Most off-ball guys are pretty opportunistic. Spider's man-up offense, though, was actually built around this kid. So Richmond decided, hey, this kid is so good off-ball. He's just so good at, seeing the field, getting open, and getting, highly, very high-quality shots off. We're going to build the entire man-up around this kid. So 7 man-up goals in 7 games. And those 7 man-up goals were good for second all-time at Richmond, and he did that for a single season, and he did that in just 7 games. So this kid is one of those talents that where Richmond's sitting here thinking, for us, did we get a generational kid? Is this going to be one of the best players that we've ever had on campus here? So I think that Richmond, with all the things that he did last year, I think they have a lot of reason to be excited about Connell, because I think he is one of those guys that we're going to be talking about by the time he's a junior and a senior as one of the top 5 guys in the country offensively. Next guy, we're going to get into the ACC here. Duke's Dyson Williams, 6'2", 200-pound kid out of Hill Academy. Started all 8 games on attack for Duke as a freshman. And Duke was this was one of the weakest offensive rosters Duke has had in many years, albeit they would have gotten it together eventually. When I say weakest, I just mean they lacked a little bit of depth, and that was partially only true because the first midfield line wasn't panning out, and they were missing Robinson and Manown for all of the season at that point. So That hurt them pretty badly. Led all freshmen nationally with 3.13 goals per game, ranked 5th in the ACC and 29th nationally overall. Led Duke with 30 points off 26 goals and 4 assists. So this kid comes in as a freshman and was leading Duke in scoring and would have finished the year as Duke's leading scorer for sure. 55.6 shooting percentage, which led Duke and was 2nd in the ACC, 7th nationally. Kid has a nose for putting the ball in the back of the net, but you got those lefty finishers coming out of Hill Academy. That's going to happen. At least 1 goal in all 8 games. He had 5 hat tricks, was on the Tewarton Award watch list as a freshman, 7 goals in overtime win, 7 goals in overtime win versus Richmond. So that was a big deal. First attacker to post 7 goals for Duke since Zach Greer. So that's really good company to be in. And the big thing for Dyson Williams is, I think of all the guys, his point production, even though it was already pretty high, I think his point production is going to jump the most. I think that the next guy I'm going to talk about, his will jump pretty well, but I think you're going to see Dyson take another step, because he's not going to remain Duke's leading scorer. Michael Sowers is going to do that, but you pair a guy like Dyson Williams with Michael Sowers. You put Michael Sowers driving up from right X, or from X coming up the right side. You put Dyson Williams on the opposite side, and Sowers is going to throw passes through the defense. He's going to throw passes over the defense. It doesn't matter if the defense has to be honest and protect from getting scorched by Sowers. They will have no option other than to leave Dyson at least in single coverage on that backside, loose coverage, where even if he doesn't get spot shots off those feeds, he's going to be able to dodge his guy underneath down the alley and stick easy goals. So I think Williams is going to see a huge uptick in his production because of Sowers. And that's going to be a big deal for Duke. It transforms Duke's team, obviously adding the best player in the country. But you look at the chemistry and the way it looks like some of these puzzle pieces are starting to fit together for the Blue Devils, and they're looking scary. The next guy, and this guy, I mean, you look at how well he played throughout the season, and I think he was the leading scoring freshman. Maybe I have it in my notes here, but Michigan's Josh Zawada, 6'1", 175-pound kid out of Hill Academy. First 3 guys I talked about all just happened to be part of from the Hill Academy. 2020, big numbers for this rookie. 16 goals, 16 helpers, total 50-50 split, 4+ points in 6 of 7 games, 5+ points in 4 of 7 games, 2 6-point games against Canisius and St. John's, 2 goals, 3 assists versus Yale. I throw them in there because that was the best team Michigan played. Now, he's a streakier shooter than the other 2 guys. The other 2 guys have much higher shooting percentages. And a lot of the freshmen I'm going to talk about here end up having really good shooting percentages. But he did a lot. He was pretty much Michigan's best player, I would say. And then he got keyed on a lot because he carried the ball a lot. He fed a lot. So teams really had to game plan around him when they played him. So he ends up shooting a little bit, 33%. That's not great. But Michigan wasn't great, and he got keyed on a ton. I was lucky enough to see a couple of Michigan's games. And he was fun to watch. Played like a sophomore. If he puts a little bit of weight on it, at 6'1", 175, the type of abuse that he's going to have to take to continue his success is going to be considerable. So I think that this is one of those kids that, especially with COVID, this COVID offseason could really have helped this kid. If he comes in even at 185, or if he comes in at 190 plus, look out, because he doesn't play like a scrawny kid. He played pretty damn tough. But if you put on just a little bit of weight to the point that he can muscle himself around a little bit more, not get a little bit, when you're an attackman and you're dodging from X or down wings, defenders tend to try to kind of get that push on your upper shoulder here, and it kind of makes you top heavy when you're a smaller guy, and it'll take you off your step and off your pace a little. So if he can put on some muscle, he doesn't get pushed off his path quite as often, and that will increase his shooting percentage. It'll help him get shots off a little bit more effectively and put them on cage without those getting deflected. And more importantly, his production's going to go through the roof. So I think that Michigan has the real deal in this kid, in Zawada. And if you haven't seen him play, make sure to check it out. It's worth looking for and watching a Michigan game one way or another, whether you do it on like that Big Ten network or whatever the hell it is. It's for me, I subscribe to every freaking lacrosse channel that I can possibly get, so I can just watch nothing but lacrosse during the spring. But even for laymen, that Big Ten channel, even if you just got it for a month or two as they get into conference play, it's worth it. You know, the streams aren't always great, but the announcers are typically pretty good where they're doing the national games on it. And the Big Ten teams, they beat each other up. They play quality lacrosse over there. Next guy. Notre Dame's Pat Kavanaugh, 5'10", 185-pound attack out of Chaminade. First kid not from the Hill Academy that we've talked about. Started all five games for Notre Dame, tied for team lead in points with 16 in those 5 games, tied for team lead in goals, 10, second in assists with 6. 3 goals, 4 helpers in his debut versus Cleveland State, scored 4 goals in a win over number 17 Richmond. And one thing I've noticed is a lot of the guys I've talked about had big outings in their, against Richmond. So that's probably not good that Richmond is getting torched by other teams' freshmen all willy-nilly. Probably a sign of lack of depth for Richmond on the defensive side a little bit if the freshmen are the ones that are torching them. Obviously, brother of Notre Dame stud Matt Kavanaugh, who is also now a pro. It's fitting that Pat's going to tear it up for Notre Dame. I know the Notre Dame fans were really excited about Kavanaugh coming to Notre Dame, and I wasn't sure that he was going to get on the field as much as he did and that he was going to tear it up like he did as a freshman. I thought he might have a slow progression as a freshman into contributing, but I was wrong. He contributed right away and did so at a very high level. Virginia's Payton Cormier, 6'2", 200-pound kid out of Oakville High School in Ontario. 2020 as a redshirt freshman, and I've spoke on him before. One of the big things with Cormier was that he got hurt in 2019 and had to rehab all year, and Tillman praised how tough he was through his rehab efforts. In 2020, he was also a college cross freshman All-American first team, started all 6 games for UVA at midfield, scored 12 goals, 7 helpers in UVA's 6 games, 3 goals in his debut against Loyola, which was tough. Career day versus High Point, went 4-1. Number 18 in the country with a 50% shooting percentage, another ACC sniper like Dyson Williams. But we see this trend as I go through these guys. A lot of these guys' shooting percentages were off the charts. So this class of freshmen from last year, bunch of stud shooters in the group. Did all of this after missing the 2019 season with an injury, and he's going to need to be equally huge for UVA in 2021. In 2020, he was playing alongside Dox Aitken and having that type of success while teams keyed and primarily pulled Aitken. And as you look at it, in 2020 they were playing without Krause because Krause moved on and went pro. 2021 they're going to be playing without Aitken. So they do get most everybody else back, but you lose Aitken at the midfield. Now Cormier is the one getting keyed on. Cormier is the one that's getting the pull put on him all the time. So he's going to have to be able to, not necessarily just continue on with this production, but I think his production is going to have to uptick a little bit. I think it will. I think that you get the ball more when Aitken isn't there, but it remains to be seen what happens. But you figure in the ACC, Duke, Syracuse, UNC, Notre Dame, they've all gotten better as COVID has happened. Syracuse brought everybody back. UNC brought everybody back. Duke brought everybody back, get Manown and Robertson back from injury, and they add Michael Sowers and Robertson, the midfielder from Princeton as well. So Duke got a lot better. Syracuse kept pace and, is going to be a little bit better. UNC is going to be a little bit better, and Notre Dame is going to be a little bit to a lot better. So everybody else in the ACC improved through this. I don't think UVA did. I don't think they brought in the transfers. You could talk about Schellenberger, but we don't know what the hell he's going to do yet, even though I'm pretty sure he's going to tear it up. But that's a freshman coming in to tear it up. Everybody else has all their upperclassmen back. So I think that hurts UVA, but Cormier can help make up for that a little bit. Next guy, Cornell's Michael Long, 5'10", 180-pound attack out of Del Barton School. As a rookie, college crosses freshman All-American again, second team, started all 5 games as a freshman at attack for the Big Red, playing alongside the great Jeff Teat. 11 goals, 8 helpers, 19 points. Very solid all-around numbers for a kid like this. Second on the team in helpers, 4th in goals and points. 24th in all of Division I with, once again, a very high shooting percentage. His was 47.8%, 7 points, 4 and 3 versus High Point. So with Teat coming back, this is another scenario where I don't think that like a Teat Long combo is nearly as deadly as a Sowers and Williams combo, simply because we have a quarterback with an off-ball specialist. Michael Long's more of that kind of two-way guy, so I wouldn't call him a quarterback, but he's a 50-50 guy. He can dodge, he can feed, he can shoot, finish, you name it, he can do it. So with Teat coming back and Teat continuing to draw that attention, I think that you're going to see Michael Long's his production go up. I think he's going to put up more points, average more points per game than he did last year. And Teat, drawing all of that attention as a super senior here at Cornell now, it's going to be huge for Michael Long and for Cornell generally. And the other big thing here too is Cornell's been dreading losing Teat since Teat has started tearing it up for him in the first place. Michael Long by no means is going to be able to just fill that void, but it's nice to see that Cornell has a guy who can create offense for everybody on this team, so that after Teat does move on, they know they got a guy waiting in the wings to kind of take over and anchor this offense. And they have a couple of guys coming in that'll be solid as well. Another guy, now we'll start getting into some quicker guys. None of these guys are as big a names as the ones that I maybe mentioned, but all of them are pretty solid. Lehigh's Christian Mule, 15 goals, 5 assists, 21 points, another great finisher in this rookie class with a 45.7% shooting percentage, 4 multi-goal games, 6 multi-assist games, 4 hat tricks, 4 man-up goals, 3 goals in debut versus Utah. He'll likely start shading closer to a 60-40 guy, I think, as his career wears on, just by necessity. When you got these guys that finish but can also feed, eventually they start to even out their point production a little bit as they get double teamed more often and they share the ball a little bit more. I expect to see that with Christian Mule, a very solid freshman out of Lehigh. Now we get into teams that are reloading, and teams like High Point that I'm about to talk about. They had they had the crazy keeper from 2019. I'm just drawing a blank here, even though we talked about him a million times here and ended up being the rookie of the year in the PLL. See, you guys have all noticed that I'm trying my recall, as we haven't had a lot of lacrosse to talk about, and I haven't been thinking about lacrosse only. My recall is ditching here a little bit, but I'll think of it. But anyway, Asher Nolting is the main guy I wanted to talk about here. High Point has a Tuarton caliber player here in Nolting. And the fear when you have these guys is, all right, we got this guy. We're going to enjoy this guy for 4 years, but now we have to start trying to make sure that when this guy leaves, we don't go back to where we were. It's teams like High Point that could tear it up for the 4 years they have Nolting, but you lose Nolting, you're right back down to, a mid-level team that doesn't pull upsets like they did in the 2019 season. And they weren't upsetting people in 2020. Nolting, I think, was struggling a little bit, trying to get used to the new flow. He was trying to do a little bit too much, but I think they'll adjust in 2021. Now, the reason High Point should be very optimistic that things aren't just going to fall off once Asher Nolting leaves is they picked up Tyler Hendricks and Devin Buckshot, both freshmen. Both had great first years. Hendricks 14-2, 16 points. Buckshot 12-2, 14 points. Both goal scorers, both guys that are good to put around a guy like Asher Nolting. High Point, they had a couple of holes to fill, or they lost a couple of guys from the 2019 season. And I don't think these guys filled it perfectly because you could tell offensively their flow was off. But as the season wore on, these guys got comfortable and they put up some points. Played nicely alongside Nolting, who drew a lot of attention, and then they took advantage of that. I think they would have done a little bit better if Nolting wasn't trying to do a little bit too much, and I think that 2021 will see that. I think Nolting lucked out having that year where it's like, hey, I'm the man now by myself on this team after losing a couple of seniors that helped him out in 2019, and I think that affected him. I think the added attention affected him, not having a couple of the ball carriers that they had the year before. I think that affected him. So they're going to provide a huge uptick in production for both Nolting and themselves in 2021. They're going to do well, but I think once Nolting is gone, these guys are going to be just sitting there waiting to kind of take over that offense, and I think that gives High Point some stability and gives them the ability to stay at the top of their conference even after they lose a stud like Nolting. Now here's a big one for Marquette. They've got 3 kids that came in that tore it up. Now granted, Marquette wasn't a very good team in 2020. They were 3-4. And they had played a fairly weak schedule by the time COVID nuked the season. But we have Chris Kirshner, Devin Cohen, and Jake Stegman of Marquette, all freshmen. Kirshner, a midfielder, 16-4, led Marquette in scoring as a freshman. Cohen, an attackman, 9-8, 17 points. Stegman, an attackman, 5-10, 15 points. So as I said, Marquette, 3-4, played a weak schedule up to that point. But to have these three young guns running around, it has to give them some hope for 2022, 2023, and you would expect them to improve. I mean, you get three young guys that are just forced over your first 7 games to contribute as much as these guys did. They grew. Now they've got an offseason to improve. A lot of, your freshman to sophomore transitions as a player, that involves a lot of bulking up, putting on 5-10 pounds of meat, and improving your skills on top of it, because most of these kids haven't spent even though all these kids have spent a ton of time with sticks in their hands, most of them haven't spent as much time as they do once they get to that D1 level with their sticks in their hands and working on very specific things, all within the scope of their offenses. So I think you're going to see Marquette improve. I think you'll see Marquette, instead of being 3-4, after 7 games, maybe Marquette's 4-3 after 7 games in 2021, and it will be largely because of these young studs that they brought in, Kirshner, Cohen, and Stegman. So watch them. And running out of the Big East, is it the Big East still? Playing Denver, and that's one of Marquette's big rivals is Denver. I saw him play last year once or twice, and I didn't really notice these guys, but once you look at the stats, you're like, hell, these guys were pretty solid. Next up, Maryland's Daniel Maltz, 12 goals, 6 helpers, 18 points. Now, if Bernhardt doesn't come back, he is going to get a big chance to step up and grow some hair on his turtle chest. 3rd on the team in goals, 4th in points. Led the Terps in man-up goals with 4, 5 goals with 3 man-up goals versus Penn. Perfect fit in Maryland's scheme. Maryland plays kind of a positionless offense. You got guys running around all over, attackman dodging from out top, Bernhardt, cutting all over the field, despite the fact he was their best player. And the whole offense is geared towards, let's not force anyone to do too much. Let's let everyone get touches. Let's let everyone get in on the motion. Let's let everyone get some dodges. And Maltz is just a perfect fit for that type of offense. So, excuse me. If Bernhardt doesn't come back, Maltz will be right there. That's why Maryland is able to reload, rinse and repeat every year, because they got guys like Maltz who, end up being in the shadows for a little bit because you got guys like Bernhardt and Wisnowskis and people like that on the team. But as soon as they're given their opportunity, boom, you've got a potential All-American on your hands in Maltz. Next up, man, I did a good job prepping for this one. This is a lot of content here. Denver's J.J. Silstrop started all 6 games for Denver, and actually in part of those first 6 games saw some serious foes. They played Air Force, who is solid, Duke, North Carolina, and Notre Dame. Probably one of the toughest early season schedules in the country, although their schedule kind of wanes a little bit as they get into their Big East conference play. 10 goals, no helpers. Who needs helpers? 4 caused turnovers, so you got a little bit of hustle there. You'd need that as a freshman if you're starting for Denver. Hat-trick versus St. Bonnie's, put up 8 of his 10 goals in 2 games. So he's one of the guys where I say, all right, they played 6 games and 8 of his 10 goals came in 2 of them. So we got to be tempered with this kid, but this kid's the real deal. Very, very capable scorer. 5 goals on 5 shots in the win over Air Force. That padded his stats a little bit, but Air Force is a solid team, a very good defensive team, and he shredded them. So that's one of those deals where Denver's got other guys. He wasn't the guy at Denver. So for him to be able to just, let the game come to him, and where the opportunity came up, 5 goals off 5 shots, that's a hell of a job by Silstrop. So it'll be interesting to see his progression. Now the question becomes, they've added talent. Denver picked up new attackman Jackson Morrill from Yale. He transferred over. Kotler from Yale, midfielder. So how does he fit in with those guys, with Jungle Jack Hanna and the like? And so I presume his production is going to go up. I just don't know how it's going to end up going up, how much. He could end up just being a 20, 25-point scorer in 2021 just by design. He doesn't need to do too much. Loyola, and I like to talk about teams like Loyola because Loyola is one of those teams that's perpetually in the top 20 now. They've kind of solidified their claim to a top 20 spot. Every year they're a tough get, a tough draw on your schedule, and then they pick up a dude like Pat Spencer, and then they end up being a top 10 team and make some noise in the tournament. So Loyola, the key to them staying there and the key to them continuing to be a top 20 team, one of those pieces of the puzzle, or 2 of the pieces of that puzzle. I'm going to butcher this name too. Adam Poitras, and Joey Kamish. Poitras, 5 goals, 7 helpers, 12 points. Kamish, 8 goals, 3 assists, 11 points. Both are good signs for Loyola, though, in their quest to stay solid and not fall out of the top 20. Albany is unique in that they have dominated the America East Conference for years. I want to say they kind of dominated it for the most part for like almost a decade. And now Albany, the last year, since Connor Fields left, and that's it. Connor Fields graduates next season. Albany is not dominating the America East Conference, and I don't think they would even won it last year. So to see a dude like Graydon Hogue come in as a freshman, he goes 11-4 in 5 games for the Danes. He's going to have to continue with that type of production because DeHoga Nanacoke can't do it all the time. DeHoga is not a quarterback. He is a finisher. He can dodge too, but you need a primary dodger to kind of help open him up and let him play his real game so that he doesn't have to force things. So I think that Hogue's production in 2020 bodes well for Albany in 2021. I think it gives them another elite type dodger and scorer that can kind of get Albany back to the top of the America East. Now, as I'm finishing up here, I got the sun glaring in my eye, but lucky for me, that's the end of my list here. So that is this episode. I've been rambling for quite a while. I'm going to let you guys roll. We got some COVID tests going on in our household today, as I've got a sick wife, and we've just kind of been hunkering down, not doing anything for the last week because we've been going through it. So we got some excitement here. Maybe we've got the vid. Maybe we don't. We'll know by this weekend if we had the vid or not. So I'm just going to be hunkered down, stuck in my house, in my office, as I usually am. So that is all. We'll be back here next week, maybe something over the weekend. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you want to listen to the audio version only, go to anchor.fm/LaxFactor, or you can get this podcast anywhere where you can get podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it, we're there. Stitcher, we're even in some weird, obscure ones beyond that. And that is it. Thanks for watching. I'll be back. And Hoost is out.